What's going on, YouTube? So today we're going to be working on my 2000 Mercury Sable. We're going to be working on the rear end. We're going to be doing shocks, springs, and upper ball joints. So this is for all of you Sable wagon and Taurus wagon owners today. So before we get started, I just want to go over a couple special tools that you're going to need to do this job. For the ball joint, you're going to get one of these ball joint separators. You don't have to get one of these. It just made the job a lot easier. You can use a pickle fork, but you can go ahead and rent one of these. I had bought this from Harbor Freight. I think they cost around $20. But what I did rent was this ball joint press and then this cup adapter set. So we're going to start off by removing the caliper. You got two bolts right here that are 14 millimeter. So one thing that you're probably going to have on your brake caliper is an emergency brake cable. I had to change these calipers out, and the emergency brake cable on the old caliper was rusted in, so I ended up just cutting it because the e-brake system didn't even work anyways. Now that we have the brake caliper out of the way, we're going to go ahead and remove our caliper bracket. There's two 15 millimeter bolts here. Next, we're going to go ahead and remove the shock. Now, if you follow down here, there's a through bolt that goes through, I don't know, the control arm, I guess. The bolt head is a 15 mil, and the nut is an 18 millimeter. Now, before you pull this bolt out, you might want to put a jack under here, because this is going to be under a tiny bit of tension. Or you don't put a jack underneath there, and that's also okay. Now our shock is free from the bottom. We're going to go inside the car, and I'll show you where the nut is for the top part. Now we're inside the car, and Ford, in their infinite wisdom, put a little panel right here so that we can get to the nut for the shock. Just pop this out, the flat blade or a trim tool, whatever. And there's the top of our shock. It's a 14 millimeter. Go ahead and pull the bushing out. And you can already see our shock drop through. Just take it up this way. Ugh, other side was a lot easier. Now the next item we're going to do is remove the nut for our ball joint. You can see this thing is blown out. We're going to be going ahead and replacing these with ones that have Zerk fittings on them so we can grease them. But yeah, I don't think the car is going to last that long for these ball joints to ever get greased again. This ball joint nut is a 21 millimeter. So before we use the ball joint separator, I really highly advise you to place a jack underneath the spring here, because when this lets go with that ball joint separator tool, it's going to make a pretty loud pop, maybe scare you, but yeah, it'll go ahead and separate, and then it'll drop this a little bit, so you just want to be able to catch this control arm with the jack. This tool's pretty easy to set up. You got two different sizes for the jaw. We're going to need it on this size, the second hole. Comes with this bolt to press on the lower jaw. So we're going to go ahead and just get this top portion slipped in the top here. Go ahead, hit it in with a hammer. Okay. Just try to bring you guys in so you can see what it looks like before I go ahead and start cranking on this forcing screw. You can see how that lower finger is positioned under the ball joint stud. Go ahead and get our impact. This is a 19 mil for me, could be different for you. Let's sit down. Now we can go ahead and let our jack down. Go ahead and grab ourselves a pry bar right about here on this little caliper hanging ear on the control arm, on the steering knuckle, and on the upper control arm. Let's see. She is blown out. So we're gonna go ahead and try to press the ball joint out now. Use this little shallow cup from that other kit that I showed. I'm just gonna use that to just give myself enough room so that I can use this little socket on the bottom of the stud to give my forcing screw to press something to press against. We're gonna set this up like that. Go ahead and spin the forcing screw up. So we got our C-clamp, I guess, all set up. We got the little shallow cup. Hopefully we can get this moving a little bit. It's gonna bottom out in the shallow cup, then we'll just switch out the cups. But we got the forcing screw pressing against their socket. And then the forcing screw is a 22 millimeter. There we go. So we got it to pop, that's great. Go ahead and back this off. So I need to go ahead and change cups now. See here, there's how we got a little bit of movement. So that should be good enough for us to go ahead and change cups out. We should just be able to press it the rest of the way out with. Okay, now we've got our shallow cup swapped out for our deeper cup. Let's see if we can get this thing completely pressed out. Uh-oh, well, looks like we got our socket stuck. Well, anyways, there's our ball joint out, so that's really good. You can see how completely hammered it is. So my camera wasn't recording, but I went ahead and popped out the spring. And the way I did it is I have a pipe underneath this control arm, hanging on this caliper hanger ear from the steering knuckle. And then I've got a very long pipe leading to a helper. So get yourself a neighbor or a family member or a 100-pound child, whatever you got, and have them lay on this big pipe, and then you can press the control arm down enough, and then take a pry bar, scoop it underneath the spring, and just pop it out. We're gonna go ahead and install the springs now. I got some Moog springs, and these came with a new top isolator here, and then we're just gonna go ahead and reuse our original bottom isolator. And then I went ahead and I sprayed both sides down with some fluid film just to give it some lubrication to slide in. So go ahead and have your helper press this whole control arm down, and we're gonna go ahead and slide the spring in. So let me try to scoop it in like that. Go ahead and press it down. Okay, hold on. Almost there.
Mm-hmm. I can see it.
That's it. Let go. Oh, yeah, let go. You're good.
That's it?
Fudge, yeah, man. So now we're gonna go ahead and install the upper ball joint in. I got me some Moog upper ball joints. If you have a lot of rust in the ball joint bore, go ahead and clean it out. This is pretty clean. I'm gonna go ahead and just take some grease just to aid in installation. Just lube up the bore. So we're gonna go ahead, get our ball joint started. So we're gonna use this small one right here from that auxiliary kit, auxiliary cup kit. We're gonna set it right there. It's gonna press on the outer portion of the ball joint. And then we're gonna take the smallest cup from the press tool kit and this little adapter with the steps in it. That's gonna go on the bottom. And one thing I forgot, in pressing it in, we're also gonna need this shallow cup as well, because the forcing screw is gonna sit in this little section of it. So. This is where you gotta develop 3 hands. Try to wind that forcing screw all the way out. Slip your cups in. Turn the forcing screw down. Try to get everything as centered as possible. Now there's one thing I want you to keep in mind for the bottom when you're pushing the whole ball joint through. the stud is gonna have to go through the hole. You don't want it to get hung up on the cup or on like one of the little edges on this little adapter piece. So my stud is kind of centered. I'm probably gonna press it in a little bit, and then I would just keep checking to make sure the stud is following straight and true. If it's not, then I'll release the cups and I'll move the stud a little bit, and then I'll reposition my cups. All right, the next thing for our ball joint installation is go ahead and install the snap ring. The original ball joints didn't have a snap ring. The Moog ones come with one. I'm just gonna install it because they came with them. You can do whatever you'd like. There we go. Snap ring is all installed. Next, gonna go ahead and install our boot. Now when installing the boot, I couldn't really get it to clip on or fully seat around the ball joint. On the driver's side, there's a little bit of a gap. So I'm just gonna treat this thing as a dust boot and, you know, just periodically fill it with grease so that I know it's always gonna be pretty fresh in there. Yeah, this side's no different, can't really get it on. So now we got our boot in place, we're gonna go ahead and take our upper control arm and drag it down, and we also gotta take our knuckle and push it forward. Okay, so to help getting the ball joint into the upper control arm, I've got a jack underneath the lower control arm, compressing it as high as it can go before it starts to lift the car off the jack stand. And then now we're gonna go ahead and slip the boot on, and then gonna go ahead and pry the steering knuckle forward and try to get the stud into the control arm. Let's press this down, get our boot slipped on. This kind of moved over. This will get us started. Should be able to kind of move this with my hand. There we go. And take our pry bar, kind of shove it like that. Oh. Oh. Once we've got a couple threads showing, go ahead and slip on our castle nut. And what we'll do is we'll slowly let the jack down, and it should guide the stud through there. We'll be able to tighten down the castle nut. So we've tightened down the castle nut enough to where we got it aligned with one of the holes so we can slip our cotter pin in. Go ahead and just split the cotter pin. Good enough. Go ahead and install our Zerk fitting. This is a 10mm for this. All right, that's good. Now we're on the home stretch. Gonna go ahead and slip our shock in. Go ahead and lubricate our bolt with some anti-seize. When you install your bushings, there's gonna be one side with like a wider, I don't know what you wanna call this, circle on the inside of it. The one with the smaller one. Smaller one goes down to the shock, the wider one goes up to the chassis. Make sure you install these little washers first. So first goes the washer, then goes this guy. Go ahead and slip the jack underneath the control arm. We're gonna go ahead and jack this up and get the shock to go all the way through, and we're gonna secure it at the top. So here's the stud. Again, I'm gonna install this towards the chassis, the bigger end. Get that in there, get our washer on there. Get our nut started. I go ahead and tighten this nut down until it completely stops. So we're gonna go ahead and wind in our caliper. I got this nice little wind-in tool, link in the description below. I forgot to turn on the camera, but I went ahead and torqued the lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds. Well, YouTube, that's how you change the rear ball joints, shocks, and springs on a 2000 Mercury Sable or Ford Taurus wagon. If you would have done something differently, please let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed content like this, please consider subscribing. And as always, YouTube, I hope you found this video helpful, entertaining, and educational. Until next time, thanks and take care.